It is 7 o'clock, so we're going to get started. I'm super excited about tonight. Thank you for being here. Thanks for taking the time out of your week, and I know it's a work day, to come hang out with us and eat some food and talk about camera stuff. I really appreciate each of you and just for everything that you bring to the team. We couldn't do what we do without you guys every weekend and every week in and out of weekend in and out. What is the word? Anyway, I'm super excited to introduce our special guest. He is primetime Emmy award-winning camera operator. He's worked on pretty much every show that you can think of, Oscar, as far as like award shows, Oscars, Academy Awards, Emmy Awards, Grammy Awards, AMAs, Golden Globes, SAG, and that's only like a quarter of the list. American Idol, The Voice, America's Got Talent, and then The Bachelor, Bachelor in Paradise, Bachelorette, Shark Tank, Love Is Blind, Late Show, James Corden, Conan, Ellen DeGeneres Show, Kelly Clarkson Show. He's worked and shot for MLB, NFL, NHL, NBA, and he's also done some presidential inauguration concert stuff and then some interesting interviews in Israel for Benjamin Netanyahu. So he has been around Centerpoint for going on 20 years, and because of the nature of his work these days, he usually watches online. So he brings a really interesting perspective to what we do. So I want to introduce Steve Thiel. I'm going to hand it over to him and give him a round of applause.
Usually not in front of the camera, so this is a little weird for me. But thank you for letting me be here. Before we get started, I'm just going to do a quick prayer because I'm going to need it to get through this because this is really not my forte up here. So, Heavenly Father, Lord, I want to thank you for tonight. Thank you for the opportunity that you've given me to have a blessed career. And for all the people that poured into me, I want to be able to do the same and to be able to pour into the souls that want to be here and to help, spread your word through this medium of media. And Lord, I just pray that you'll help me to say the right words that will align with your will, and also with my experiences, be able to share and impart any kind of knowledge that I have that may help elevate and direct someone who might want to go in the same career path, and that you'll guide them as you have guided me. And I pray all this in Jesus' name. Amen. So, man, those lights are bright. Really, I love being behind the camera because this is a little terrifying. My name is Steve Thiel. I live right down the street over by Bear Creek Golf Course. I've been coming to the church with my wife and our 2 adult children now since 2006 when it was Lamb's Fellowship, and it was just that building that's the children's building. That was everything. So we've seen tremendous growth, and Pastor John and I have had conversations over the years about, what do you think about expanding, in certain aspects of TV and video production. And I had come from a church in Orange County where they kind of bit off more than they could handle and wanted to get on TV right away. And they had hired me away from a full-time job that I had working for a ministry. I was an editor for a ministry. And they said, we want you to head our TV department. We want to get on TV. This was in Mission Viejo, South Orange County. And gave me a huge budget, and said, let's get on TV. We want to do this. We want to explode. And in about a year, we were able to get a really good, solid foundation going on with a volunteer group of individuals like yourself, and we got set up and we were ready to go, and then the housing market crashed and everything, and the economy tanked in 2006, and then they said, okay, bye-bye. We're getting rid of everything after they already invested into the TV direction. So I kind of shared that with Pastor John. And I said, be careful with how much you invest in this, because once you get in, it's like kind of hard to get out. And you have to be able to stay on top of technology and navigate through it. And I think he's done a really good job of not taking on too much, but curating this and becoming a video media ministry that really is impactful. And because of the nature of my work and sometimes just the nature of my procrastination or laziness, I don't get my butt into church, so I watch online. The lockdowns and stuff kind of helped make that an easier solution, which was really beneficial, of being able to watch and see what's going on. And there's nothing like the experience of being in service. There's nothing like it. But those viewers at home, really, the only thing they see is what you shoot and what you project. So there is a level of, I see a level of excellence that I look for when I'm watching a service online, whether it's, a big name pastor down the street or if it's Center Point or whatever. And there's some things observations that I've made that I think that we could address and look at maybe building upon so that it can become how do I want to say it? Just an automatic thing that we do when we go into service. The methodology, just the cohesiveness, the mindset that you go in when you're shooting. If you're a camera operator, there's certain techniques that I'll point out that really come across when you're behind the camera for the viewing audience, and certain things that you should do and should not do, which will actually make a huge difference for the viewer. I kind of went in a different direction than I was going to, but I kind of got right into it. But for a little background, if you want to know a little background, I was pre-med in college, hated it. My best friend from elementary school, all through high school, we went to the same college. He wanted to be a sports broadcaster. And he goes, dude, you got to take this intro to TV class. It's super easy. Sounds like fun. I was like, anything's better than cellular biology, so yeah. And light bulb clicked. I was like, this is fantastic. I love this. This is what I was meant to do. My parents weren't too happy about the change in career, from a prestigious doctor position to now you're going to work in TV as a camera guy. But I said, I can make a career out of this. And I went to a two-year college. I didn't want to go to university. I went to Fullerton College. They had the best program at the time, back in the early 90s, way better than Cal State Fullerton. And it was 90% hands-on, 10% classroom. Cal State Fullerton, ratios were the other way around. I wanted the hands-on training. I wanted to get my hands on equipment. Graduated in 2 years, got my AA degree in radio and television production and a certificate of proficiency in video production and post-production so that I knew how to edit as well as shoot. Before I graduated, I got hired at Trinity Broadcasting Network. And most people know what that is, and if you don't, it's a Christian TV station that used to be the biggest way back in the day. And they're in Orange County in Tustin. And I started working there, and they made you do everything. You had to do lighting, you had to get on a ladder, you had to hang lights, change gels, you had to sweep the stage, you had to set up sets, you had to run camera, you had to do lighting, you had to do everything, you had to stage manage. So it was a really good training ground for me to figure out what did I really like to do of the production process. And then over the course of time, I met people through that, started working in sports. I got hired. I grew up in Anaheim, so I was an Angels fan, long-suffering, brain damage Angel fan because of owner. There you go, brother. And I was fortunate enough to get hired in '95, right when the last baseball strike started and then ended. And then I worked all the way through 2010. And I was fortunate enough to work a lot of playoff series. I got to work the 2002 Division Series, Championship Series, and World Series. I was fortunate enough to, because I was part of the Angels organization, I got a World Series ring out of it. So that to me was just like the greatest achievement that I could have thought You know, I'm not a player. I love baseball, but yet I got the same thing as what the players got. Not as much bling, but I still got the same thing. And then a few years later, I end up making the transition into Hollywood full time. And my very first year in Hollywood, I'm working for American Idol, and we win the Primetime Emmy Award for Best Show. And I have a little thing here. I didn't pull it out because you don't want to just let everything out of the bag. But I did bring in the Emmy Award.
Drum roll, please.
I don't want to drop it. So. This was my kid's favorite part. So that is a Primetime Emmy Award. And yeah, I couldn't believe that God had rewarded me for just being faithful with the two things that I had, I guess you want to say, for lack of a better term, coveted the most in what I was hoping to get in my career. In sports, working for a home team and then potentially getting, you know, to celebrate with the team and get something that they get. I got that. It blew me away. And then a few years later, I ended up getting this. Still chasing another one, which is fine. I'd like to have two so my boys won't fight over it when I go. But yeah, it's surreal. And whenever I look at it, I realize that I don't deserve this. I don't deserve this. But I'm thankful that I was part of a crew, because I didn't get this on my own. I was part of a camera team that had 16 cameras on a show. And our show went up against 6 other shows that were nominated in that category, and we just happened to win. And I think it was maybe a little wink from God saying, thank you for being faithful. And, you know, here's a little token of your faithfulness. And I'll never forget it. So I look at that as, I did 15 years of television ministry before I went into LA. So it's a cool thing. But that's not why I do TV. That was just more of like here you go. Thank you. And now keep your eyes on the real prize. So I'll leave it here. Actually, I'll put it back over there so it becomes less of a distraction for me. And you guys can take a look at it. I did not bring the ring. It's actually in a locked case. Well, junior size. I have kind of a smaller hand than maybe the average person. So once I got into LA and then started working on shows, a lot of that was just word of mouth. That award doesn't get me work. There's a lot of people that get one of those up there, and some of them will market that, but there's a lot of camera operators that have a lot of nominations, no awards, or that have, like one of my really good buddies who helped me get up there, he has like 10 of those. And for different shows, and every year he gets nominated for 3 or 4 awards, doesn't get any, but it's like, it's okay. Sometimes it's just kind of like a political game up there. There's voters that we want this show to win, or we want this show to win, and you have no control over it. But the shows that I have worked on, I'm thankful for the opportunities and the relationships that I've cultivated and developed. Not every show is something that I would want my kids to watch or that I would want my mom to watch. I have a couple of caveats. There are certain things I will not work on, and I've turned down and I've been asked to work on, and I've flat out refused. No, I'm not going to do that. And there are some that are kind of borderline, like in 2 days I got to work The Bachelor. Women tell all. It's like, okay, yeah. But then, like a month ago, I had to work on I didn't say I had to, but work's been really slow. So I ended up working on this Netflix show. And it was a show for this Hollywood medium. And I'm like, okay, I really don't want to be here, but I'm going to be here and I'm going to pray against whatever they're doing. And I'm going to hold on to the scripture that says the wealth of the wicked will be laid up for the righteous. And maybe that's taking a fine line, going in a different direction. I don't know if it's twisting the scripture or not. I'm looking at it as I'm going in with a pure heart. I'm praying against what it is, but I'm still going to do my best because I'm a professional. And we know that no matter what, no matter what corporation you're working for, they may have evil people at the top. You're still there as a steward doing your job and representing yourself as a child of God. So that's my approach. That's my philosophy is, besides porn, that's the one of the few that I'm like, no, I will not do that just because it's wicked and vile and there's no redeeming value to it at all. And anything that's overtly demonic. But, I'm not saying I'm perfect. There are some shows that I've just like, I regret taking that show. RuPaul's Drag Race. I did the finale like several times. I come home and I'm just like, I need to take a shower. I feel gross. It just feels like blood money. But sometimes I just have to take the shows just to put my family first and make sure that I'm working. But then I get to work on shows like The Voice or American Idol or America's Got Talent, where there's a lot of good people and you see a lot of good stories come through and they treat you right. And so there's a pendulum, there's good shows and not so good shows, but that's kind of the nature of the beast, so to speak, in my industry. Now, when we're dealing with the church side of things, it should all be, Lord willing, you're doing good stuff and you're shooting stuff that's right and appropriate, from the pulpit. I'm rambling, so let me, if you don't mind, I'll just open it up to if there's any questions that you guys like to ask. I'd be more than happy to answer questions. Hopefully, I was able to give you a little bit of my background. If there's anything you want to know more about my background, I'll be happy to answer that. Prefer not to get into the TMZ type questions because that's usually left for like the elementary school kids and stuff. But I will answer some of those if that's what you want to know. Like who my favorite person to work with and who's been the biggest jerk. Those are the types of questions that the kids like to ask me. But maybe I'll answer that off mic. So, okay, if that's cool. So, yeah, any questions? Yes, sir.
Yeah, so I appreciate what you have to say and the level of experience that you're bringing and you kind of giving us this information. That's super awesome. Thank you. So I totally resonate with what you're saying. And I put it like capturing the essence of the service, trying to put the person that's at home in one of the seats. And so sometimes what I'll try and do is and I'm kind of throwing it out there because I want you to help me think it through. So I try and take it from the standpoint of if I were in the service, I wouldn't just be looking at the speaker, or I wouldn't be just looking at the person singing. I'd be kind of looking around, I'd be looking at other people. I'd be looking at maybe, somebody doing something else that wouldn't be the main focus. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, my thoughts on that is as long as your tally light isn't on, always be looking outside of your viewfinder if you're a camera operator. Try and look and see what else is going on that is relevant to the atmosphere, relevant to the subject matter that is being shot. If it's the preaching part, it's not a whole lot going on. But if it's the worship service, you got the bass player is just ripping it, you know, and your shot before that is like maybe a tight shot of one of the background singers or whatever, and you see something going on. As soon as your tally light's off, you know, go for it, dive in. Just make sure that you're not doing an on-air move that is erratic, because those are jarring when you're watching it at home, when you're watching it on your phone, you're watching it on your computer. The biggest thing that I would say is just be aware of your surroundings. Perfectly fine with checking things out outside of your viewfinder, but if your tally light's on, that's not the time to be looking for shots, obviously, because any slight little movement that you make translate and magnifies itself on the screen at home. So if you're doing a loose or a tight follow of Pastor John as he's walking back and forth or whatever, after a while, he'll start to kind of develop a cadence. He'll maybe take 3 or 4 steps, stop in the middle, maybe go to the right, 2 steps, come back to the left, maybe stop in the middle, or maybe not, just keep on going. If you can kind of get used to his cadence, or if it's, you know, Pastor Ann, I think she stays behind the podium a little bit more. She likes to really stay there. It's kind of like more of a, I don't want to say a security blanket, but she will stay more centered, or she's not as animated walking back and forth and tripping on chairs like me. So as an operator, if you see that, okay, he normally goes to the left, and then we'll pause for a few moments or whatever, anticipate that he's going to start going to the right, and then just gradually lead him a little bit. And then that way it's nice and smooth. It is something that's natural to look at versus I'm over here, I'm starting to work, and I'm still over here. Oh, I better catch up. Then you kind of get caught napping in a way. And then it magnifies that, oh, maybe the person wasn't paying attention. So then that comes across as, oh, they may have inexperienced operators on camera, and over time that can get a little tedious to watch, and people might get a little frustrated with it. They might want to tune out. But if it's something that looks and feels natural, then they're going to stay engaged, because you don't want the word that's coming across to have to conflict with the camera movements and the angles. So that's like my biggest thing that I focused on when I was doing ministry TV, was learning the cadence of the speaker, their flow, how often they would go back to center, how often they'd go to the right, about how much time it would take before they start to move. And you can kind of just catch with their body movements. So I hope that answered your question to a degree without too much verbosity, but it's just a tip, and it's a skill that you learn over time, and it's a feel. And music's completely different. But for the preaching part, that is something that I think can easily be tightened up just with a little more anticipation of what they're going to do. And then just really gentle movements with the camera, nothing too jarring. And then at the same time, if you're switching, if you're the director, and if it looks like someone got caught being behind, don't be afraid to switch off of it and go to a wide shot as a backup to bail out your camera operator. Maybe they zoned out, or maybe they're taking a drink of water, or maybe they need to pull their glasses off or something, and they just got caught. We're all kind of working together as a cohesive unit to try and put out the best product. When it comes to transitions in music, a pet peeve of mine, and I kind of share this sentiment with a lot of people up in Hollywood, When music is being cut, especially if it's fast, dissolves are a no-no. They should be used very infrequently. When it's slow music, same thing. They should be used very infrequently. If you do a lot of dissolves over and over and over again, for one, it doesn't allow your operators, especially your handheld operators that might be on RF or whatever, it doesn't allow them the ability to repo without you catching them repoing in the middle of a dissolve. If that makes any sense, if you understand. If you're a handheld operator and you're low and you're trying to get a shot of something, and then the director says, okay, ready to take two, but you're doing a dissolve, then they're already moving, repositioning themselves before the dissolve is done. And then you see that camera movement in the transition. Once again, it's jarring when you're watching it online or watching it on a TV. Cuts are always the better choice, but there are times when a dissolve works. But the overuse of dissolve can make or break a production, can make or break a music piece when you're watching it. So I've seen some of that, and I kind of brought that up as a bullet point with Andy Biscotti about maybe half a year ago. I was just saying, hey, this is something I observed, and just wanted to say, hey, if you guys can look into that and see if it's something that you can maybe do a little bit less of, it'll really clean and tighten things up and give your camera operators a fighting chance. Because a lot of times you have to kind of like really hold your shot, trying to keep it steady until the director takes it. And then you're just like I know me, if I'm preparing for a shot, I might be holding my breath or doing short breaths just to hold the shot steady. And as soon as I lose my tally light, I can breathe again. I could repo. But as I lose my light, if it's a dissolve and I move and I can see it in return, or I can hear the director going, don't move, don't move, then I know it's like, oh, well, I messed up the shot. No, I didn't mess up the shot. But the dissolve made it look like I messed up a shot. And then you have that playing in your head, oh, the director yelled at me, or whatever. And then psychologically, it can just kind of wear on you. So, anyway.
Check. I'm going to have Nate join us too, because we were going to do a panel Q&A anyway. Okay. Grab a seat. One thing you were talking about with handhelds and dissolves, we cross fading cuts instead of hard cuts. Our handhelds are on tear decks, so they don't have a tally light, which makes it even harder to know when your shot's done.
Oh, wow.
You were talking about, the tally goes away, or you're live, but if you don't have tally...
What in the world is he talking about? We don't even have a tally.
The stationary cameras have tally. The roving cameras don't have tally.
So you handheld guys, I feel bad for you. And girls. If you're running handheld, quit now. No, I'm just kidding. No, that's where communication is one of the biggest things when you're directing and you don't have tally, because you really need to make sure they understand. If they know it's just going to be cuts and they can anticipate cuts, then as long as you can verbally give the command, all right, camera 3, take camera 3, and okay, camera 3, you're clear. If you're already cueing another camera, make sure that you let the other camera know. If they don't have a tally, make sure you let them know they're clear. And if you are on a camera that doesn't have a tally, just try and hold your shot until you hear that you're clear. Don't assume that you're clear, because then it looks like we're playing TV 101. And we don't want that. We want to give God our best. We want to give Pastor John our best, because it's a reflection, obviously, on leadership with who he brings in and has representing the church in that visual medium online, as well as, on the mobile app and whatever. You guys get what I'm saying, right? Okay. Yes, sir.
I have a question. Do you have any tips for being able to hold the camera steady when you're standing?
I got quite a few tips that I can give you depending upon the type of camera, the style of camera that you're using, because some procedures will work with certain types of cameras where they may not work for others. So you guys are using like Black Magics where you're kind of, okay. Yeah, that's tough. I'm used to cameras on my shoulder that are anywhere from 20 to 40 pounds. So there's different muscle groups and different breathing techniques and walking techniques and things like that that you develop over time to keep your shot steady. You're dealing with forearm and shoulders. If you were to just put your hand out and hold it for 30 seconds, just your hand, it's going to start shaking. Now add yourself a 4-pound camera with a 2-pound battery with maybe a 1-pound microphone or whatever, or even a little cage that's on it. Then you're talking an extra possibly 10 pounds. I don't care who you are, it's gonna start, you're gonna start shaking over time. What I tend to do, which I don't run those cameras that often, but when I do have that opportunity, I find that it'll be weird to do it with a microphone in my hand, but I find I try and keep my hands as close to my body and lock my elbows into my chest as I'm holding. I try not to do this out here too much because it's a lever. You have too much risk of camera shake. But you don't want to be squeezing your chest to where each time you take a breath, the camera moves, or your heartbeat is pulsing through your fingers, and then it causes the camera to shake. So it's kind of finding that happy medium. Your stance, like for me, I tend to have left foot forward. I'm right-footed, so I use my right foot as my base, and maybe have my knees a little bit flexed and my elbows in. And depending upon whether I'm using a flip-out LCD screen or if I'm using the monocle, will just depend on my grip. But I try and keep it as close to me as possible, just to avoid any kind of camera shake. So with the type of cameras you guys are using, and then just you develop your own system, your own, maybe right foot forward, maybe one knee bent and one leg forward, or if you have to squat down really low and get a certain angle, you're going to get a workout.
There's some examples in those pictures I used today.
So, with the smaller cameras, it's developing a technique that works best for you. Also, shallow breathing. It kind of sounds like really technical, but I'm a firearms enthusiast as well, and keeping your firearm on target, it all takes proper breath control in addition to trigger control, grip strength. So it's just developing certain things that work best for you, and then just doing it over and over through repetition. So, yeah, of course. Yes, sir.
What do you think the panel can speak about reaction shots? We don't do much of them here, like shooting the crowd and their reaction, and how to best shoot it and how to properly introduce that with the goal of, again, involving those that are not here into the service.
So reaction shots are interesting, to say the least. It depends upon the circumstance. Like if Pastor John says something or whoever says something that's very funny, that is naturally, organically funny, and you get a pretty good response. If you're a handheld, which I would assume easier to get the shot than if you're on a hard camera because you're going to be behind the audience. I think it's better to get a reaction shot that's kind of down the line, if that makes sense to you, versus straight on to someone's face, because that kind of, it looks better when you have more depth and you have more heads in the shot. It creates a larger reaction to the viewer than if it's just one person straight on to their face. If that is something that the director is aware of, that there could be a lot of reactions, then the positioning of the handhelds shooting back into the audience, maybe kind of knowing your audience as well, knowing the congregation. If there are certain people that you recognize that like to respond a lot, maybe favor that area, but not directly in front of them. Maybe kind of be out of their eye line, but keep the shot maybe a group 3 or 4 people. And if you do it kind of like we call it a rake, which is kind of like, a down the line shot where it looks like there's, 3 or 4 people that are in the row. If you can do something like that and the director is able to take it at the right time, it works great. If the director's behind the ball, behind on it and not doing it in time, then it's kind of disjointed. So it depends on how you guys feel of taking audience shots, and if you think you can pull it off and make it work, it's very effective. Hopefully that answered your question.
We have a mix of people. Some people have been running camera for several years with us, and some people have been running camera for several weeks or months. I want to ask you, what are for a just new person to the team, new to running camera, top 3 camera running basics for broadcast? What are your top 3 tips? Let the suspense build.
Either that or gravel coming out of my top 3. Headroom. Proper composition. Headroom. Lead room. You don't want to have them going like this, and here's the end of your frame. Give them a little breathing room. Once again, kind of get to know their mannerisms. If it looks like they're going to walk to the left, give them a little bit of lead room and just anticipate a nice flow. You're not going to get it perfect every time, but it's better to have more lead room than have them right up against a wall, at the edge of your frame. As far as the headroom is concerned, there's such a thing as regular headroom and European headroom. And European headroom is like a little extra more. I don't know why. It bugs a lot of people. But for some reason, they like extra headroom. But having the proper amount of headroom in your shot just makes people see the person versus looking, why is there all that room up there? Then they start diverting off the person and looking up to see what is supposed to be up there. And it becomes distracting. So you want people to always be focused like on the speaker, on whoever is talking. And number 3, let's see. When you have tallies, know that when your tally's on, be as delicate as you can with your shot. Don't make any whip pans. If they start moving, just don't get freaked out and pan and then it's all jerky. Just try and keep it as smooth as you can. If it's a stationary shot, just hold your shot. Focus is obviously very important. We say focus is optional, but it costs extra. We invoice extra for focus. But having focus, making sure your subject is in focus, that's going to be 3B in that regard. If you have the ability to get, when you're off, when your tally light's not on, those that have tallies, when your tally light's off and you need to check your focus, go in and grab it as soon as you can. Focus on their nose or their eyes. And then once you get that, pull back out to your shot. If your camera viewfinder has peaking or detail, try and find the best setting for you that helps it really pop out to show sharpness. Contrast and brightness can be your friend, and they can also be your worst enemy. Personally, I'm getting older. I've been doing this for 33 years. I have to have a little more contrast and a little less brightness. And I need a whole heck of a lot more peaking nowadays than I used to in the past. So don't be afraid to make the adjustments if you're on camera that work best for you. And then if you come in, check it ahead of time. Make sure that the previous person who may have had really bad eyesight or whatever, make sure that the settings that they left aren't going to be what you have to deal with, because then you are going to struggle the whole time. And those settings will help you with your confidence with focus. Yes, sir.
As a general rule, what would be the correct amount of leading somebody when you've got shots? I know it's going to be variable depending on the angle you're hitting and so on and so forth, but approximately where should they be when you're leading somebody?
If it's a head-to-toe shot, try and keep them in the left 2/3. If they're facing one direction, try and keep about maybe a third of your frame, or maybe less, ahead of them. If it's a waist shot, you want it to be less because you have a little more leeway on a wider shot. On the head to toe, you have more room to play with. It's more forgiving, is the term I was looking for. If you're on a tight shot where it's a bust or mid chest to head, you don't want to have too much headroom or too much lead room, because all they have to do is turn their head and then it's a giant gap. So just fractions. It just depends on your composition. I wish I could show you examples, behind a camera and have someone on stage and just do that. Maybe that's something that can be done in a different workshop, like more of a hands-on workshop. But typically it depends on the composition. The wider the shot, the more lead room you can give them. But as you start compressing your shot, your lead room needs to objectively decrease so that relationally it works.
And related to that, if you do get behind somebody when, they turn, you've been pacing them and all of a sudden they jump the other way and you get behind, leading them, try to catch up or just kind of let it go and follow where you're at? What works best for something like that?
You don't want to whip so that now all of a sudden you have a tremendous amount of, lead room. I guess try and catch up in a natural pace. Hopefully the director sees that and will maybe cut off of you to bail you out, to help you out, and cut off to another shot or a wide shot so that you have a chance to reframe. Sometimes I know that may happen. The director has to step away, and you guys are on your own for a minute or whatever. I've been there before. So then you have a little more of a stressful situation. Just try to not make any drastic sudden moves when you're live streaming, because it's so magnified for the home viewer. Mm-hmm. Anybody else?
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Are there any real don't go angles or stuff, especially for handhelds? Because if you're on sticks, there's only so many different ways you can frame things. But for handhelds, are there any just really maybe aren't initially aren't flattering, but to someone who's just anything to really stay away from?
Well, for our women in the room here, no woman likes to be shot from a low angle. None of them. I don't know a single one that does that.
John also hates that.
So okay. I was
the up the nose shots.
Yeah. So pretty much no one likes the low angle perspective, but sometimes you have to. So if you have a low angle, try and make it as flattering as you can. If you see someone's got a quadruple chin, maybe cut off 3 of the chins. Do what you can to try and help the person out. If you have a low angle shot, maybe try and get up to their eye line. If it means you have to squat down, if it's in the front row, whatever, squat down, kneel down, or whatever, and then just try and do that 2 or 3 group shot down the line, rake shot, whatever. If it's a emotional moment and people are crying, the thing that we hear on headset is, "Oh, we got a bleeder." So that's what we hear often when there's tears. But of course, we're not in church when we're
Every Bachelorette episode you shoot, do they say that?
Oh yeah, we got a bleeder. Yeah, you can get in really, really tight on that. But if they're like cry ugly type of bleeder, doesn't really work. I mean, it's emotional, but it's just be respectful. We're in church. Be respectful. That person, is going through maybe a spiritual moment. They're very vulnerable, and someone else is seeing that vulnerability that no one else, other than the person to their left and right, would. So just think about the hundreds of people or thousands of people that are watching online, and then it's archived, so it could be potentially millions of people down the road that see that. The vulnerability part is it's something you have to just realize, would you want someone else shooting you in that particular state? There's a whole row of people crying, I don't see that's a problem. But if it's one person, they're really being touched, be sensitive to that.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. In the moment, use discernment, and we'll help you. Like, if you're getting a shot that's invading someone's really private moment, we'll probably say, get us a different shot. But yeah, there's definitely a balance and the right kind of emotional or reaction shot to get versus if you were in a really emotional state, really vulnerable because you just had this profound experience with the Lord, and you look up and it's on a 16-foot screen / online. You're
Right.
Because everything.
what are the odds you're going to do
IMAG
that next
too.
week?
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Oh boy.
It's great when they make eye contact with themselves and then look for the camera.
One thing I do like about a shot that sometimes works from low up on the floor here is if you incorporate something with lighting in it. If we have enough haze and a light that you're incorporating the movement or the beam of light and someone, you can only get that shot from this way up. You don't get that from this way straight on. So that I like that. That works pretty well. It's not just the person, and you can count their nose hairs.
Right. And those are pretty effective on a wider shot as well. It's kind of hard to get a really good tight on that unless you have the perfect amount of haze in the room with the light, and it might even cause like a glow. But it's the director's job also to make sure that they don't take the shot. So as you said, discernment, not just with the operator, but with the director, whoever's cutting. Don't take shots just to take shots. You're telling a story. You are kind of like the author of this particular moment, and feel what you think God would want you to project as you're telling that story. If you're up on the stage as a handheld and you're getting reverse shots, do you guys know what a reverse shot is? It's where you're shooting back towards the audience and you're shooting like maybe the backs or the sides of musicians. Make sure that if you're doing that, make sure that your background works. You don't want to have a reverse shot of the keyboardist where you have the keys in their hands in the foreground and the background is black with no light or nothing at all. It's nothingness. That might not work so well. Or if you're shooting the keyboard and you're shooting the wrong direction, you're shooting down the keys and you're shooting into the drape or whatever, versus if you're shooting from the other side, you have down the keys and you can see like a background singer or you can see a guitarist in the background. Just know your backgrounds and try and frame your shots accordingly. And if the director sees that and it has a nice foreground and background, go for it. If not, we all have to learn how to have a thick skin too. And if you sell shots, I've sold probably 1 million shots in my career, and I've maybe had 10,000 of them taken because I'm selling, constantly selling. Sometimes it works for that moment, sometimes it doesn't. So don't be afraid to move on. If the shot doesn't work and the director doesn't want it, sell them something different, and try not to get your feelings hurt. If they're not always taking shots, you can always talk with them and say, hey, is there something you're looking specifically from me? Because I'm selling you shots and you're not taking them. Then as a director, have the ability to say, reframe it a little differently, or it doesn't work for that moment, but go back to it for this moment. You know, it might just be you're in the wrong place at the wrong time.
We're getting about 10 minutes left, and there's some things I want to hit you, but I wanted to ask you, because you've been experiencing Centerpoint online, and you happen to be like a professional camera operator. What are a couple things? It can be 3, 4, 5 things that you notice that we're doing well, and then 3, 4, or 5 things that could stand to improve, or that distract you while you're watching. And you mentioned one is fades, too many fades. So there's one.
There's not a whole lot that I can say needs improvement or bugs me. The frequency of the dissolves was something that I was like, we need to tighten that up a little bit. I've used this term before, and I don't mean it in a negative connotation, but to me, dissolves are lazy. That's how I look at it. I've directed for years. I just don't direct up in Hollywood. It's too much stress. But I look at as dissolves as being just a lazy way out of cutting a show. It's not making the director really think about your next shot that you want to take. So if you can get away from having too many dissolves in music, especially, even in the slow stuff, you shouldn't always have dissolves. Dissolves work kind of well when you're dissolving to a wide shot as you're transitioning to another song. But if too many dissolves, it kind of makes it sleepy. So, and then the duration of the dissolve is another thing. It's okay, you can have a 1 second dissolve and it works. But a 4 second dissolve, oh my gosh. Get up and go to the restroom and come back, and then, it's just, it monotonous.
Yeah, the only time I've noticed that I really like those long dissolves or crossfades between shots is if, particularly during worship, is when you have a vocalist and the person whose shots live has purposely put them on 1/3, and we put ASL up on the other, and then you fade it that way. Like, being creative, those work pretty well, especially even if they're a little bit longer. But yeah. Yeah,
when you're crossfading between two subjects, that's when it really works. But if it's just a habitual thing, then it just becomes laziness. That's how I look at it. And then the sudden movements of just it. I know it's hard. We're volunteers here. We're not getting paid to do this, so it's hard to kind of like over criticize. But if you want to elevate your game, there is some critique that needs to occur, and just I guess it's really staying focused and learning the cadence. I use that word. That's the word of the day. The flow, learning the flow. And as you learn the flow of whoever is delivering the message, you'll learn to flow with them as you're panning. Just make your movements all nice and smooth, and just avoid the abrupt falling behind and trying to catch up type of movements. The different angles and the different shots are fantastic. The creativity of getting the reverse shots in the band, the low angle stuff in the front row, those things, they really work. They make it feel like there's 12 cameras, on this. I know there isn't, how many of you guys have? 6?
6 off, 2 stationary.
Okay.
If I have a full team,
That's a huge blessing, just to have 3/4 of your camera ops here. Yeah. So I know what that's like. But when you're here and you're doing this, man, it's such a blessing to be able to have the opportunity to watch the service, and when you're not there, and you get to really see what's going on. It's huge. It's huge. I'm in LA, and I'm like, I got some free time. I'm going to log in and watch the service. And, it's just like, wow, I got to do that. I don't have to wait until the archive gets put up a few days or a week later or whatever. I can watch it right now. And it really, it allows people like myself to connect and to be there. And it's really, it's so beneficial. We don't get the accolades and the attaboy, attagirl, nice job, you know, whatever, that maybe we should as volunteers. But none of this happens without you guys. In my industry, our camera utilities, they run the show. They run everything. Without them, we can't do our job. And they don't get hardly any of the accolades, or what, I don't know, better word for that, the respect that they should. I've always treated my camera utilities as some of the most important people, because they'll go over and above to help you, because you're showing them respect. We're all on, we may get paid a little different, like in my industry, but we're all the same. We're all there to do one job, and we're all part of a team. In here, we're all getting paid spiritually the same, and none of us is better than the other, and we're all doing it for God, and making sure that we're giving God our best.
So what you're saying is we need to establish the church Emmys for broadcast.
I think there is something, yeah.
That was a great transition into what I just wanted to end with. I think that, you know, we don't often get the specific camera team together, and so I wanted to hit a couple things just to highlight some part of the why. Obviously, there's a lot that goes into production and what we do, and our goal is both to facilitate an atmosphere of worship in person, and then extend that beyond the physical concrete walls of this venue. And that's in huge parts of this team. What you guys bring to it, it's the only part of this experience that leaves. Yes, everyone's doing everything in there, and that would just stay in there if we didn't have the tools and the people serving to get it out. So it's been a little bit since I've done this. I went back and I grabbed some data from 2024 and just wanted to share it to show you like where your work is going and the impact that it's having. So you can hit the first one. This is Facebook average viewership in 2024. I pulled this is end of last year, beginning of this year, but there's a couple examples of a couple weekends in a row, and I didn't pull the analytics off Facebook are a little bit hard to navigate, but we do approximately 900 people per week just on Facebook. And the next one, Facebook total viewership in 2024 was 36,000 people. The average watch time on Facebook is much lower than our embedded streams at 2.5 minutes, but that's still a lot of people beyond these walls. The next one is through Resi, which is what we use to stream online. And this data is just from embedded streams on our website, people that use mycenterpoint.tv to go watch the service. I didn't even go to YouTube. I didn't pull YouTube numbers, but just so you can see, last year in 2024, unique viewers, 15,515. And then next slide, the average viewership on this one is really great to see for me. 35 minutes of average watch time, which is way higher than Facebook. So that's, again, embedded in the website through Resi. That's a lot of hours. And then, what's after that? Viewership metrics based on location. Most of our viewership, like 90-something%, is Southern California. The graph shows Murrieta as go back one more, the circle. Murrieta is the highest, Menifee, actually Murrieta, then LA, then San Diego, then Menifee, then Temecula, Lake Elsinore, Wildomar, Homeland, East LA, and Long Beach. And then it goes beyond that. Go to the map. There are people that tune in to watch from most countries, except Russia. We pray for them. But yeah, that map shows, this is again just Resi, viewership across the world. The red, green part, it's a heat map showing the density. Obviously, Southern California would be the most dense, but we do have people, dropping in from all around the world. So that's part of the impact that being on this team has. I just want to thank you for that, because this is the team that makes that happen between you guys and the guys that switch and direct and put everything together. I mean, it's all cohesive, because we could have all the shots. If we didn't have the sound, we wouldn't hear what they were saying. And if we didn't have lights, we wouldn't see what they were saying. So it all works cohesively together, both to invite the Holy Spirit to do a work in that space, and then let people in on what's happening, and they can engage like Steve does remotely from wherever they're at. So I hope that's encouraging. That for me, it's helpful to. The numbers aren't really important to me, but it helps to establish the it's something more tangible as to reach and impact of this team. So, yeah, that's what I wanted to share. Do you have any final thoughts?
Those numbers are actually pretty crazy.
Yeah, our online
It's
attendance
humbling.
is like weekly. Facebook was 900. Resi is similar. It's about 1,000, I think, per week on Resi on the website. So our online attendance is almost the same as in person. So it's pretty cool. We do between
and
2,000 and
that's not even
3,000.
the archive. The archive goes up. I look at those numbers after the service has already happened. It goes up on YouTube, and that's what runs our archive. There's at least another 400 to 500 people who watch every week. Later on,
Yeah.
not live.
Yeah, the Facebook numbers I pulled were from the last 2 weeks, and I went back to see because it's hard to pull the just live viewers data and then weed out. Okay, how many of them just watched for 5 seconds? Okay, and how many of them watched for 30 seconds? And what do I actually tally up as a meaningful engagement? Usually more than 5 minutes, because people on social media just they see it and then they scroll past. So yeah, it's cool to see that. So some of that data is the more current. It's only been live for a couple days, so it hasn't had months to rack up hundreds of more views.
Have you done any of the analytics to find out how many people are watching the worship service over the message? Is there a percentage of...
I have not looked that up as far as what point of the service do they drop off, and yeah.
Right. Yeah, I'd be interested to see that too, because I mean, the majority of the hard work really is the worship service. That is the blood, sweat, and tears of it. And after that, I know everybody can kind of do a collective sigh of relief once it gets into, it's time to, take the offering, and then this week's announcements, and then, the message, and then the call to action and all that. But yeah, the worship service that's the hard part.
Unless Aaron is preaching. Then you're on again.
You talk about lead time. We have specific conversations with operators for certain preachers based on how fast they are. So we'll if we can use a really great waist-up shot for Pastor Ann, we totally ditch that for Pastor Aaron. Just don't try to get a waist-up shot with Aaron because he runs around the stage and jukes you like he's playing football.
Yeah. And probably does it on purpose too.
We chase him instead of lead him.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's going to wrap it up for us because we're a little bit past 8. Steve's going to stick around for a little bit. He brought some gear if you want to play with some stuff. Is that a Steadicam chest rig?
It is, yes. There's some stuff that I thought maybe if you guys wanted to explore it and integrate it in, it's available. I'd love to just loan it out to you guys for, I don't know, start with a month and just see if it's something that you want to integrate and try it out in a service or 2 or 10, and see if it's something that you want to do. Obviously, it'll require taking a handheld position and integrating it into something like that. And then I brought this little funky thing here. It's kind of like a really poor man's jib, but it really won't do much other than to raise and lower or pan left or right. But the camera can't track with it because there's no controls unless your camera has the controls that can mount on there. But it might be something that can be used maybe once or twice a service for something dynamic, set up in the back for like a high shot to kind of drop down or something as a transition. Way in the back. And then that way you can get a super wide shot, especially when you have a full. Yeah, that's a great idea. And if you guys want to try that out with a DSLR that you can spare for a service or two, and it gives you some good like archived footage that you can integrate into promos and stuff. So
Cool. Well, let's give Steve a hand.
thank you.
Thanks so much for coming out. There might be a little bit of extra food. Check and see. Take it home because I don't want to leave it here. You can check out his cool show badges on the side and touch base with him. We'll probably hang out for another 25 minutes and then have a great night. Thanks for coming. and I'll see you, some of you, on Sunday. Real quick, we did just launch team leads, so if you know who your team lead is, if your team lead is either Ricardo or Jesse, I think that's it. Oh, Elisa, you can connect with them, and they can connect with you, vice versa, just to say hi. That's it. Thank you, guys.
And I'm happy to answer any TMZ questions you guys have.